Ultraman, the Giant of Light, and Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, both fight for justice. But what happens when one sense of justice conflicts with the other? How will Superman's interference in strictly human affairs appear to an alien who has been fighting tyrannical Kryptonians all his life? How will the SSSP's secretive nature appear to a reporter like Clark Kent? This isn't just a battle of titans. It's a battle of ideology in a universe broken by war. Prologue. The movie begins on a long shot of the sun, but as it pans out, we see an alien, Mars-like landscape, revealing that this is not our sun nor our world. You hear the sounds of war from afar, explosions and the demonic bellowing of some foul creature. The camera swoops down to the action, revealing an intense battle between Kryptonians in black suits with long flowing capes, fighting red and silver aliens with huge glowing eyes and a crest on their head, the Ultramen. Here we'd see a young Ultraman Zophi, and maybe a few other Ultras from the series, leading the charge against the Kryptonians, led by General Kor-Zod, the ancestor of General Zod and an infamous Kryptonian warlord akin to Genghis Khan. We see Ultras in fierce fistfights with Kryptonians, zipping around the battlefield, spatium rays and laser beams flying as bodies rain from the sky, and alongside the human-sized Ultramen, we see giant, 150-foot-tall Ultramen fighting colossal doomsdays, skyscraper-sized Kryptonian bioweapons of mass destruction. We cut to Zophi, in the midst of fighting off 5 Kryptonians, and suddenly the sky lights up, and the Ultras and Kryptonians look up to see that the father and mother of Ultra, who as of now are just called Ken and Marie, arrive alongside an Imperious Ultra, wearing a red mantle holding the Giga Battlenizer, Ultraman Belial. Belial, Ken, and Marie descend on the Kryptonians, raining down fury like avenging angels, and joining Ground Commander Zophi, they make their way to Kor-Zod.
Belial, Kor-Zod says in a deep voice, your reputation precedes you. I must say I'm a fan of your work. The battle of Planet Boris was a genuine masterpiece. I've longed to meet you for quite some time. You think too highly of yourself, Belial laughed. If you knew any better, you would run. In the name of the Kingdom of Light, you will die. Kor-Zod laughed heartily. Ha ha ha! You think you can take me? I'll slaughter you just like I slaughtered your brothers. I can still hear their screams. I think I'll savor them the rest of my life.
Zophi rushes Kor-Zod in a fury. Just like every other Ultra, he'd lost people to this monster, and he intends to play him down. Belial, Ken, and Marie try to intervene, but are jumped by Kor-Zod's royal guard. They manage to fight through just as Kor-Zod pins Zophi to the ground. He unsheathes a sword and raises it high above his head for the killing blow. But Marie, his mother, jumps between them and takes the blow. Ken rushes to her, holding her in his arms as she fades away, Kor-Zod laughing. Belial falls to his knees in agony, and a part of him dies. He would never admit it. Not to Ken, anyway, but he loved her too. In a berserker rage, Belial charges the Mad General, and the screen goes to black. 20,000 years later, we see a majestic shot of Superman flying over the city of Metropolis as a crowd of onlookers cheer him on. We pan to see that they hold picket signs with slogans like Free Superman. Superman touches down on the steps of the courthouse, where he joins the other members of the Justice Gang in court. Apparently, Superman and the Justice Gang are being charged for illegally interfering with foreign affairs and, killing a world leader. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in the other city that never sleeps, Tokyo, Japan, a meteor strikes out of nowhere, too fast for anyone to have predicted. From the rubble emerges 2 giant silhouettes, one the now familiar shape of an Ultraman, and the other an alien with a gray body and silver head, Zerub. The two grapple in the middle of the city for 3 minutes. Ultraman pins Zerub to the ground and asks one chilling question. Where is Belial? Zerub raises a palm, and a blast of light shines forth, blinding Ultraman. When he regains his sight, Zerub is gone, leaving Ultraman in the midst of a smoking city. Ultraman examines the destruction for a moment with cold remorse, then takes flight. The next day, the media is taken by storm as news of the second alien contact since Superman takes the world by storm. Perry White of the Daily Planet decides to send Clark Kent to Japan to investigate because of his experience with another extraterrestrial superhero, Superman. Lois Lane requests to go as well, but Perry tells her that he needs her on another story in Barovia, which is facing political instability since the murder of President Gurkos. As Clark Kent digs deeper into the mystery of this first encounter, he finds more and more red tape tied to a mysterious organization called the SSSP. After another dead end for Clark Kent, we cut to a silent observatory, the people literally frozen in place, some frozen in positions of running or screaming, all with expressions of fear. The glass doors shatter and 4 helmeted figures in orange suits rush in, and we zoom in on their insignia, SSSP. They rush up the stairs into the observatory, which has been converted into a sinister-looking alien control center, with holograms displaying the Earth and what looks like battle plans. They confront an insect-like alien with huge pincers. One of them steps forward and attempts to communicate with the alien, who says that they want to inhabit the Earth, but believe that they would be hunted down by the humans. So they have decided to exterminate the humans first and settle the planet, uncontested. They try to reason with the alien, but fail to come to an understanding. The alien Baltan takes aim, so they shoot the alien, but their blaster bolts go straight through it as if it weren't there. A holographic diversion. Then the alien drops down on them from the ceiling. It nearly snaps the head off the one who tried to talk to it, but is bodied by one of the other members, who engages it in hand-to-hand combat before being flung across the room by a hearty blow from the Baltan's massive pincer. It takes aim with its pincer, preparing what looks like an energy blast, but a perfectly placed blaster bolt from one of the members makes the energy ignite and explode the pincer entirely. An electric bolt lands perfectly in its forehead, shocking the alien and knocking him unconscious. The crew regathers and takes off their helmets, revealing our cast of SSSP members. Fuji, extraterrestrial communications expert, Arashi, the hotshot, Ide, the technician, and Captain Muramatsu, who is obviously the captain. Muramatsu orders the alien be detained and then steps up to examine the large orb-shaped structure in the center of the observatory. Ide scans the structure to reveal thousands of life signatures, just like the alien Baltan they took out, likely shrunk down in order to neatly fit into the spaceship. Muramatsu thinks for a moment, and then he tells Ide to contact NASA, which has an upcoming mission to Mars, in order to request that they relocate the spaceship there. We cut to the SSSP returning to headquarters, where they find Staff Officer Takanaka, supervisor of the SSSP division of the Terrestrial Defense Union, who introduces a fresh new recruit to the SSSP, Shin Hayata. Reportedly, Shin Hayata is an ace pilot who served with the American Air Commandos, tasked with piloting the new experimental jet VTOL. Here we cut to Lois Lane, who's covering the rising tension in a now leaderless Barovia. Here we see what's left of Gurkos' fascist regime under a new president, battling against a new communist faction called the Baravian Republic. Tensions are quickly escalating from isolated skirmishes to a full-blown war with innocents in the crossfire. Over the phone, Lois and Clark debate further intervention, with Lois arguing that it was the Justice Gang's intervention which led to this crisis, while Clark maintains that he can't sit back and watch innocents die, and also reminding Lois that he wasn't the one who killed President Gurkos. Meanwhile, back at the SSSP, Fuji interrogates the Baltan alien. When she asks why they decided to colonize Earth, the Baltan answers that their planet was sacked by a great enemy. Who is this great enemy? Fuji asks. He is one of the... And here he utters an alien word, which Fuji can only roughly translate as Shining One. Long ago, he turned against the Shining Ones. They locked him away for millennia, but he escaped and turned on us. Why? Fuji asked. Long ago, the alien responded, our ancestors taught the Shining Ones how to manipulate mass. The great enemy decided that our knowledge was dangerous, and so he decided to exterminate us. Of our 10 billion lives, only myself and 2,513 remain. Suddenly, the alarms blare out a loud wail and the lights go red. Fuji gets a message on her communicator that a giant creature has appeared in Yokohama. In the blink of an eye, the SSSP roars through the skies in their jet VTOL. The city of Yokohama is in flames, and a giant reptilian monster rampages through the city. Gamora. The dinosaurian monster charges like a mad bull, mowing through buildings like they were grass. The SSSP attempts to lure the monster out of the populated area with the jet VTOL, but they are clipped by Gamora's whip-like tail, which he can swing with expert precision, and they are sent crashing. Because of Hayata's skill, they manage to make a somewhat safe landing, and proceed to engage the monster from the ground using laser bazookas. Gamora gives mad pursuit, and nearly crushes them. But as Gamora's foot comes crashing down, the monster is sent flying. Above them floats Superman, his image reflected in Hayata's eyes as we see a mixture of emotions cross them. Shock, and then suspicion and challenge. A Kryptonian on Earth? They were supposed to be extinct. Gamora gets back up in a veritable rage and roars his defiance at Superman, charging him. Superman charges back, but Gamora puts him on the backpedal. Gamora isn't like the kaiju he fought in Metropolis. He is older, far older, and far more experienced. But similar to the Metropolis kaiju, he is simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Superman holds back as he attempts to apprehend the creature and get it back to its natural habitat. But for Superman, that proves detrimental as he finds he cannot dodge Gamora's whip-like tail. Seeing that the battle with the Kryptonians is merely causing more destruction, Hayata manages to sneak behind cover, where he pulls out a mysterious capsule. Holding it high above his head, he presses the button and disappears in a brilliant flash of light. Gamora towers above Superman's stunned form, repeatedly ramming him into the ground with his massive horns. He goes to ram him again and is suddenly stopped, then dragged backwards as we see Ultraman, who has grabbed him by his horns and thrown him over his shoulder. Ultraman then proceeds to take down Gamora with expert precision, finishing him off with his Spatium Ray. Superman stares in shock at what just happened. Ultraman turns around and gives him a weary glance, then flies off into the sky. That afternoon, the Daily Planet prints the story, Skyscraper-Sized Metahuman Saves City, written by eyewitness reporter Clark Kent. In this article, Clark Kent coins the name Ultraman, partially inspired by Luthor's Superman clone, who was not public knowledge as far as I'm aware, so this awesome name is totally free for Clark to use. In the States, speculation arises that this Ultraman is another state-controlled metahuman made to counter Superman, just like the Hammer of Moravia was, leading to mass paranoia that Japan is preparing to take military action against the United States. The people begin to pressure Superman into taking action against this threat before it's too late, but Superman doesn't even consider it. After all, Ultraman hasn't done anything wrong, and appears to be a hero. Hayata, meanwhile, is on his knees, meditating in his room. His mind reaches out all the way to the Land of Light, where he contacts his father, Ultraman Ken. He informs him that there is a Kryptonian on Earth, acting like a superhero. Hayata believes that Superman is a Kryptonian sleeper agent sent to conquer Earth. He has seen this many times before. In the days leading up to Krypton's extinction, Krypton sent out many such agents to attempt to colonize a habitable planet before Krypton blew up. Ultraman stopped them, every time. He had been fighting Kryptonians ever since he was a new recruit. It had become second nature to him now. Ken, however, urges his son to give Superman the benefit of the doubt. There is no Krypton to fight for anymore, he reminds Hayata. Whatever his reason for coming here may have been, we cannot assume his intent now. We must wait and see. Hayata heeds his father's advice, and deep down, he hopes that Superman is sincere. He wants to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he cannot shake that feeling of dread. So he waits, and he watches. Partially because of Clark's paper, the SSSP begins to become public knowledge. Instead of trying in vain to hide the existence of some kind of secret task force, Staff Officer Takanaka, supervisor of the SSSP, decides the best course of action is to get control of their public image as quickly as possible. So he arranges for Hayata to be interviewed by Clark Kent, who he knows has been sniffing around for some time. Hayata meets Clark Kent at a tea shop, and because hypnoglasses don't work on Ultras, I decided, he instantly recognizes him as Superman. This is where Hayata and Kent sort of sniff each other out, so to speak. Clark Kent leaves the interview more suspicious than ever, and so does Hayata. Meanwhile, more and more kaiju emerge in Japan. The SSSP and Ultraman work together to take them down, which gains Ultraman and the SSSP the trust of the Japanese. Furthermore, Hayata himself gains the trust of the SSSP and proves to be very amiable, kind, and easygoing. However, Ultraman's continued support of the SSSP's activities only arouses the suspicions of the American populace. They continue to cry out for Superman to act against Ultraman. Meanwhile, Superman's own attempts to quell kaiju begin to make the Japanese suspicious of American involvement. And there are even murmurs in the upper echelons of the Japanese government that the SSSP should do something, quote-unquote, to deal with this alien threat. The SSSP does investigate Superman and the Kryptonian race as a whole, but as a matter of strict surveillance only. The Balton alien actually proves quite useful in this regard, and though he intended to eradicate the human race, he doesn't come across as hostile, but rather amiable. For him, the eradication of the human race was strictly a necessity for the ensured survival and prosperity of the Balton race, not a personal vendetta. Meanwhile, Hayata does an in-depth study of Superman's history. Here he discovers his involvement with the Jarhanpur-Baravia War. The Code of the Land of Light mandates him to protect sentient species from prospective extinction. But it also mandates that an Ultra must not interfere with interspecies conflicts or politics, and it is an Ultra's duty to protect the affairs of sentient species, particularly non-spacefaring ones, from the interference of extraterrestrial agents, such as Superman. 3 monsters emerge and terrorize Tokyo: Red King, Guigus, and Dorako. Ultraman fights Red King, the SSSP targets Guigus, and Superman steps in to fight Dorako. Superman is injured by the monster and flies to the Fortress of Solitude to heal. The robots put him on his special sun chair and open up the sun port, but as the sun comes into view, we see Ultraman silhouetted in front of it. Kal-El of Krypton, his voice comes echoing down the sunport. I have observed your work on this Earth. You have repeatedly interfered with the internal affairs of the human race. You have fought their wars, and those you call your allies have slain their leaders. As a warrior of the Land of Light, I cannot allow this. I come to you with a warning. I will not allow further interference. Would you have me sit back as innocents are slaughtered? Superman challenges. Would you be God to these people? Ultraman retorts. It is not our place to decide the affairs of men. I have lived among these people all my life, Superman shoots back. I'm just as human as anyone. The only difference is that I have the power to do what is right. Shouldn't I use it? This is your final warning, Ultraman repeats before flying off into the sun. Meanwhile, a giant who looks like Ultraman is attacking Tokyo. As the real Ultraman flies to the scene, the false Ultraman takes one look at him and disappears. Hayata tracks down the imposter, who turns out to be Zerub, the alien he chased to Earth in the first place. He brings him back to the SSSP base. However, in spite of Hayata's quote-unquote suspicions, the SSSP aren't able to confirm that Zerub was responsible for the supposed Ultraman attack. So the American government puts out an official hit on Ultraman, pulling out Task Force X and offering the Justice Gang amnesty if they take out Ultraman. Fuji of the SSSP interrogates alien Zereb. "What is your purpose for being on Earth?" she asks.
"To prepare for the arrival of the Dark Great Emperor."
"Who is this Dark Great Emperor?"
"The Dark Great Emperor who makes the stars tremble before his feet," answers Zereb. "The chosen of great ray blood. Soon all worlds will know his name, for his name is Belial."
"How are you preparing for his arrival?"
"The kaiju," he responds. "The great beasts. Great ray blood has given me control over them. I shall take this nation for Belial, and from here, he shall take the world."
Meanwhile, Boravia is preparing for an all-out war. The fascist regime has deployed tanks into the streets to maintain order. Meanwhile, the Boravian Republic faction is prepared to airstrike using drones. Neither side heeding the collateral damage that is about to take place, and Lois is right in the middle of it. The fighting starts and Clark doesn't hesitate. Not only are the people's lives at stake, but so is Lois's. He swoops in, taking out tanks and drones alike as fighting commences in the streets. People on both sides fighting tooth and nail with guns, knives, rusty machetes, anything they can get their hands on. The Justice Gang swoops in to help him, Green Lantern constructing barriers to try to separate the two fighting factions, Hawkgirl and Metamorpho flying civilians to safety, and Mr. Terrific helping Superman to disable the drones and destroy the tanks. Meanwhile, Hayata watches from a nearby building, Beta capsule in hand. But he doesn't bring himself to intervene. Not yet. Instead, he just watches grimly. As Superman and the Justice Gang wrap up the situation, Ultraman descends on them.
"I gave you warning," he reminds Superman. "You have exceeded your authority, and by the code of the Land of Light, I must stop you."
"I don't care how many warnings you give me," Superman shoots back. "I will never stand back while innocents suffer." Ultraman and Superman charge at each other, moving at blinding speed. Superman is stronger, but Ultraman is far more agile. He continuously dodges around Superman's attacks, landing a flurry of hits as he continues to dodge circles around Superman. Superman tries to create distance by flying into the air, but this only allows Ultraman to use his ranged energy weapons, such as his energy discs, also called the Ultra Slash, and his Spatium Ray. Superman manages to land a few lucky punches which deal great damage to Ultraman, who is not quite as strong or as durable as Superman physically. But Ultraman's speed wears the Man of Steel down. Ultraman pins down Superman with his heel.
"I believe your heart is good," Ultraman says reluctantly, "but your actions, no matter how well-intentioned, have consequences. If you fight every battle for these people, they will never learn to fight for themselves. They have great potential, and I hope that one day they may join us in the stars. But that day will never come if they continue to rely on you."
"That day will never come if we destroy each other first," Superman retorts. "You're right. We, humans, must be allowed to make mistakes. But I won't let the innocent pay for the price of the guilty." Ultraman thinks on this for a moment, but just then, his SSSP communicator blinks a red alert. A massive object is descending towards Japan. Ultraman rushes to the scene, only to find his worst nightmare come true. Belial has found Earth. Belial towers over the city.
"I am Belial, of the race you call Ultraman. I am he who nearly conquered the universe thousands of years ago. To celebrate my release, I shall take this world which Ultraman loves so much, and use it as my footstool, demonstrating my might to those ignorant fools in the Land of Light. Face me, Ultraman!"
Ultraman shifts to full size, landing before Belial. "For my duty to the Land of Light," Ultraman booms, "and for the people of this world, I shall defeat you."
Belial laughs. "You must be Ken's boy," he replies. "So much conviction."
The two engage. As quick as Ultraman is, Belial is quicker and stronger. Ultraman was trained by a Master Leo and father of Ultra himself. but Belial was forged in the fires of the bloodiest war in history. As a new recruit, he won fame with a ruthlessness that no other Ultra was capable of, a ruthlessness that won wars. Ultraman fought Kryptonians, but he never fought them in their prime, or in an army. And he hasn't fought Doomsday. Belial humiliates Ultraman. Standing tall before him, we see him laugh as he prepares his Death Sham Ray attack. Lightning arcs across his armor and into the ground as particles of debris rise around him. But he's knocked to the ground by a blue blur like a speeding bullet. Leaning hard against the building, Belial looks around to see who did that. When he spots Superman, he laughs. A Kryptonian. I haven't seen your kind in ages. This should be fun. Then he disappears. Superman looks in confusion as a human-sized Belial floats up right behind him. Boo, he says, and as Superman whips around, Belial lands the heaviest haymaker Superman has ever taken. He lands with a crater-forming boom, and the fight proceeds on the ground. Because fights are way more fun when they are grounded. Literally, I mean. Like Ultraman, Belial is easily able to outmaneuver Superman, but unlike Ultraman, he is able to match him in brute strength too. Superman knows he is outmatched, but then Ultraman steps in, taking a hit from the Battlenizer for Superman. The two engage Belial, Ultraman's experience and Superman's strength combining as if in a dance. The combatants are knocked a short distance, where Ultraman and Superman combine their heat vision and spatium ray attacks, causing a huge explosion. As the dust settles, we see two distinct silhouettes. One is a tall being with a monstrous frame, holding a smaller man in a cape. As the dust settles, we see that it is Belial, holding up Superman as a trophy. Behold, Belial says, your hero is laid low. Ultraman grovels on the ground behind Belial, the light on his chest blinking red, warning him that his time is almost up, as he struggles to get up. Don't worry, little child, Belial mocks him. He's still alive. And I'll keep him that way, just so the people of Earth can watch as I break him. As Belial says this, a huge claw climbs over the horizon. Belial's flagship, the Hand of Belial. Belial flies into the sky as the Hand makes its way above the horizon, flying into the ship with Superman. And this leads us into Ultraman's solo movie, The Return of Ultraman. Here, Ultraman must learn how to be hero to the people of the Earth in Superman's absence. As society devolves, partially because of the loss of their favorite hero and partially because of the invasion as a whole, with many people hoarding resources as they attempt to establish compounds to escape alien persecution, others using the invasion as an excuse to consolidate power across nations and remove freedoms, and tensions mounting as America accuses Japan of somehow attracting the alien invasion. And a mysterious alien named Mephilas offers to sell Japan the technology to allow them to control monsters. In the midst of this, Zareb has broken free of the SSSP and continues to frame Ultraman as a collaborator of Belial. In the chaos and confusion, Ultraman begins to rethink his policy of non-intervention in human affairs. So what did you think of my story? Is this how you imagine Ultraman vs. Superman would play out, or would it be different? And would you want to see this story played out on the big screen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Until then, this has been JP Zilla.